Okay, so there we go. So 7x is 63. So now, we're still solving equations. This whole chapter is about solving equations. Should I subtract 7 here? Yeah, this time, remember, you always do the opposite of whatever the relationship is. This time, that's 7 times x, isn't it? So what's the opposite of times? It is to divide. So I'm going to divide both sides by 7. Let me write, when you divide, you use the same sign. You don't use the opposite sign like we do for adding and subtracting. So let me write both. When you add, let me just write it this way. When you add, subtract, we use the opposite sign. So I want to make sure that's clear. So when you add, subtract, you use the opposite sign. When you divide, you always use the very same sign. Meaning, if that was a negative 7 there, I would divide by negative 7. I would divide by the very same sign, which is different than what we just did for adding and subtracting. Remember, adding and subtracting, we always use the opposite sign. Why? Why would I, if that was negative 7, why would I divide by negative 7 also? Why wouldn't I just divide by regular 7? Because if you did, the 7s would cancel, but the negative would remain. And remember what x wants? He's a big loner. X wants to be alone. No negative with him. No nothing, to use bad English. Not anything with him, right? So that's why you would need another negative, because 2 negatives would make positive, and x would be alone, which is his desire. So you see why we always use the same sign when we divide? So anyway, we didn't even have a negative. I'm kind of jumping the gun here. We just had a regular 7, so we just divide both sides by regular 7. 7 goes into 63 9 times. Good? On that one? There we go. So negative x is 37. So what do you do to get x alone there? Yeah, what's really in front of that x? Negative 1 timesing it, huh? So we divide by it, right? We divide by negative 1. Remember, when you divide by the very same sign, don't you? Not the opposite. You divide by the very same sign. Why? Because 2 negatives will make positive, regular, alone x. What's the other side? Positive over negative? Negative. And we don't leave negatives in the bottom. We don't leave 1s in the bottom. We never leave 1s in the bottom. 37 divided by 1 is just 37. Huh? We never leave 1s in the bottom. And if there had been 2 negatives here, it would have been positive, but 1 negative is negative. On that. Good? Okay, so x over 6 is minus 6. So same thing. Here's the wall. X is saying, I want to be alone. And remember, to get x alone, we always do the opposite of whatever's next to x or connected to x. So this time, x is got a 6 dividing it. So what's the opposite of dividing by that 6? Yeah, we multiply both sides. You got to do the same thing on both sides. You got to keep the balance, right? If they were equal before, treat them the same, still equal. What happens? These cancel because it's really 6 over 1, isn't it? They cross cancel because it's really, a whole number is really over 1, remember? Anytime you have a whole number interacting with a fraction, put it over 1, remember? They cancel. That gets x alone. What happens the other side? Is multiply. So, negative 36. Easy? Questions? Okay, so 3 over 17x is 21.
3 over 17 times x.
Right, that means times. Yeah, because there's no symbol there, so it means times. Right, so x is saying, I want to be alone. Get rid of this 3 over 17 thing so I can be alone. So what do we always do to get x alone? The opposite of whatever's with x, right? That's what will get rid of whatever's with x, do the opposite. So what's the opposite of 3 17?
17.
Yeah, flip it, huh? 17 over 3. Does that make sense? Just come over here and go 17 over 3. Whatever we do to one side, you have no choice but to do it to the other. These cancel, totally gone. X is alone. Great. That got x alone. Now we have to just work out the right side. How do you work out that right side? What do you do when a whole number, 21, is interacting with a fraction? Yeah, make it look like a fraction to make it easier. And then what can we do now?
Well, you can pre-reduce.
3 into 21. Yeah, pre-reduce, cross cancel. 3 goes into 21. 7 times. So you cross cancel and multiply what's left over. So what's left over not canceled out?
7 times 7.
Yes, 7 times 17, which,
119.
that what it is? Thank you. Use your calculator. 119. No more denominator. The only thing in the bottom now is 1. The 3 is gone, isn't it? The other 3 is crossed off. He's not down there anymore. And this 21 is gone. 3 canceled into 21. They're both gone, aren't they? All that's left is 7 times 17. Is that good? Questions on that one? So just multiply by the upside down. All right. Okay, so minus 4/5 x is 12/35. So x is saying I want to be alone, so go ahead, get x alone. You do that one. What are you going to do on this one? We're going to multiply by the upside down, right? Just like the last one. So whatever's next to x, we just do the upside down. So the upside down of 4/5 is 5/4. So multiply both sides by 5/4.
Negative 5.
But negative, good job. Negative 5/4 on both sides. Everybody see that? Why? Why negative? Remember, we just said whenever you divide or multiply, you multiply or divide, didn't say or multiply, but let me throw that in now. Divide or multiply, you always do the same sign. Because 2 negatives will make positive x. Right? 5 cancels 5, 4 cancels 4, and 2 negatives make positive or just regular x. So x is truly alone. Is that good? Is that making sense? Always multiply by the upside down. Now what happens on the other side? Cross cancel and multiply whatever's left over. 4 goes into 12 3 times. 5 goes into 35 7 times. And there's 1 negative left over, so negative 3/7. And we're done. See what happened there? They cross canceled. 4 went into 12 3 times. 5 went into 35 7.
Oh, okay. So
They just divided.
okay.
Cross canceled, divided.
So you have
And this 1 negative sign makes it negative. Questions on that one? Good. Okay, so minus 4/5 x equals minus 24.8. Okay. So what do we got to do to get x? Go ahead and take your first step there. What do we got to do to get x alone? Then multiply by the upside down, huh? Whatever's next to x, we do the opposite.
So we make it a positive 4/5.
Remember, multiply, divide, we use the same sign. The opposite, we don't use opposite sign, it's just opposite upside down.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a really good question. Everybody's seeing that.
Wait.
So back when the last section we just finished a few minutes ago, adding, subtracting, you do the opposite by making the opposite sign. But in this section, multiplying, dividing, you use the same sign. How do you do the opposite then? It's upside down. The opposite is handled by the upside down. Does that make sense? We use the very same sign when we're multiplying, dividing. So I am going to multiply by negative 5/4. So when you multiply or divide, the sign is the same. The upside down makes the opposite. Whatever you do to one side, you have no choice but to do the same thing to the other to keep the balance. That gets x alone, doesn't it? 5 cancel, 4 cancels, 2 negatives make positive. X is truly alone. Now, how do you do the other side? I would just use my calculator. Let me show you. Because why? Because it's got decimal. Whenever there's decimals, just use your calculator. What am I talking about? Use your calculator. Just take negative 24.8. Just put that into your calculator. Just type in negative 24.8. Go. Oh, first off, what's the sign? Let me just do the sign by hand. What's the sign going to be? Positive or negative? Positive. 2 negatives is going to be positive, right? I don't need the calculator to tell me that. I know. So when I never put signs into calculators. I just look at the signs, decide myself, and then I just type in the numbers. That's what I need help with, is the numbers. So I would just go 2 negatives, positive, all right. Now, when I type it into my calculator, I won't have to worry about negative signs. Just 24.8 times 5, again, don't worry about the negative, already handled, divided by 4. Numbers in the top are multiplied. That's what a fraction means. Multiply the top, divide the bottom. Times 5 divided by 4. It equals. And I don't know what you're going to get. You're going to get some number, 12.4, 6.2, 31?
Yes.
31. 31. So just hit the button. So when you got decimals, just use your calculator. Do it all now. Decimals, I just use the calculator.